A remarkable man.
His story, you know, his life story is incredible.
The man is just a walking legend.
He is a fantastic person. I like him, I love him very, very much.
Of course, he was a great man, but he helped us also to be successful by his presence.
A life touched by tragedy.
I always felt that Bobby went into Munich as a boy, but came out as a man.
I pulled them about 15, 20 yards away. I thought they were dead.
I'm sure at the time they would have been thinking, will I ever play again? But he not only played again, I mean, he won everything that you could possibly win.
A purist, a lover of the simple things.
Bob would have played football whether they paid him or not.
Whenever you see him play, he always had that sweep, didn't he, of the hair.
We had a bit of a laugh about that, you know, but he wasn't going to change it because of us.
He turned despair into the extraordinary.
Different class, absolutely different class.
Every generation comes by, you get a naturally gifted player.
Alf used to say, give the ball to Bobby.
Maybe a shot from Charlton. It's worth trying.
He continues to be the figure they all aspire to emulate.
You just got to sit and watch the goals. I mean, they're unbelievable goals.
And here comes Charlton. Oh, a great goal!
To do what he's done, you're talking about, you know, 1 in a million footballer.
Without doubt, he's up there with the best.
Unquestionably the best player of all time.
Sir Robert Charlton, Knight of the Realm, Ambassador of Football. Bobby Charlton of Manchester United in England. Our Bob. Nearly 40 years have passed since he finished playing here, and he no longer glides around Old Trafford like he once did. There are many too young ever to have seen him play, but those that did, those that remember him, find it impossible to forget just how good he was. Incomparably good. In his 70s, he is still adored. But once, he was a colossus out here.
He's a player with great grace, moved across the ground very easily. Beautiful balance, two-footed. He had a beautiful running style. Could float across the ground just like a piece of silver paper.
When Bob got the ball, the crowd would just an intake of breath.
Now it's Charlton, Bobby Charlton.
I used to love that. I mean, that was fantastic, because that's my brother doing there, you know.
Maybe a shot from Charlton. It's worth trying.
Some of the things that he used to do back in the day were incredible.
Believe me, this man could punch a ball really, really and accurately.
You know, he didn't score the sort of easy tap-ins that I used to get. He used to get proper goals and blast them in from 30 yards and 25 yards.
Charlton trying to get the shot, and it's on his right foot. Oh, beauty!
For me, you can see that he enjoys it. You know, the left-footed players, they are a breed on their own, and there's something about them that just breeds like brilliance.
Oh yeah, he'd be one of the top players in the midfield if he was playing now.
I think there is always this myth that players of that era couldn't play in the modern day football, which is a lot of nonsense. Bobby Charlton in his day would have played in any era. He was a fantastic player.
You probably don't see anyone scoring goals like that, even today.
And here comes Charlton. Oh, a great goal!
Oh, man. It's what you dream of, isn't it? I dreamt of being a footballer. My whole family was football mad, and all my uncles were footballers. And the best thing I ever did when I signed to play for this club, it's just magic, absolute magic.
He was born in the large coal mining village of Ashington, Northumberland in October 1937. He was a cousin of Jackie Milburn, a legend at Newcastle United. he had 4 uncles who were all professional footballers.
She comes from a famous soccer family, the Milburns. Her cousin Jackie played for Newcastle and England, and her father, grandfather and 3 brothers were all professionals in their day.
His mother, Sissy, was just as mad about the game. It was this love of football that was deeply embedded in the family DNA that offered an alternative to traditional working life in Ashington.
My mother was always one who was different. In the days in the 50s, 60s, very few women knew very much about football. It wasn't a woman's sphere. But my mother grew up among 4 brothers who did nothing else. And she was kicking a ball around with them, and she was quite a tomboy, my mother.
Well, coming from a football family, what can you expect? I mean, 4 brothers that all played professional, and they were just brought up in a football atmosphere, and the mother was a football fanatic.
She loved her football. She used to be a coach in one of the schools. She used to go and teach the kids how to play football.
I had a sideboard with the Queen Anne legs, and that was their goalposts. Used to dive on the bottom in front of this Queen Anne, you know, and Bobby especially used to love to dive across the kitchen.
The first time I remember actually having a shot at goal was my Uncle Tommy, who bought my first pair of Playfair football boots.
Lads used to come to our house and say, "Are your 2 kids, 2 lads playing football on a Sunday morning?" But they didn't have a ball because it was during the war and nobody had balls except us, because our uncles, when they came home and visited the family, used to bring us a football.
Sundays, everyone congregated at the local park, and there was a game that used to go on. It started at about 8 o'clock in the morning and finished at 8 o'clock at night, and people just used to leave for their lunch or to go to the pub, and it just went on forever and ever. And I was playing sometimes about 6 or 7 hours on but I loved every minute of it, really.
We used to play headers across the goals. There was 2 toilets the other side, but then there's a hole in each wall, and that was and I used to win all the time because I used to lob the balls over his head, and they would hit the wall at the back, and if you scored in the goal. And anything on the ground, he'd murder me. Anything up in the air, I'd murder him.
Bob used to play then, and he was outstanding. He could run rings around bigger lads. Didn't matter how they tried to get him, you know, and there was some tough guys. Nobody got anywhere near him.
The adults started asking me if I would play for them when I was about 8 or 9, I think it was. And the big lads, you know, come on, play. And so I used to find it reasonably comfortable, and I think that's when finally I decided, you know, this is what I wanted to be, a footballer.
I mean, from the day Bobby Charlton played football, when he was whatever height, everybody knew that he would be a footballer, he was going to be a great player.
I remember him playing for England youth, and I remember him coming back with a photograph of his cap and all that, and that was quite good. And he let me wear his cap, and I wish I'd had a photo taken.
Everybody knew him in the Northeast. Nobody knew me, but they all knew him. But that was okay.
And of course, then the fame started, and they came and tried to sign him up and that. And the first one was Manchester.
To Matt Busby at his desk at Old Trafford came boys from all parts of the country, boys eager to play football under the greatest manager in the game. And thus began the legend of the Busby Babes. The one question that everybody always asked Matt Busby was this.
The first question, Matt, is how do you find these boys?
Well, I'd say, Bill, I have a scouting system whose sole object is to go out looking for young, promising school boys, youth club boys, and indeed any young players who have the necessary natural ability to make a future Manchester United player.
Somebody said to me, "There's a scout from Manchester United watching you today, Bobby." You know, I played the match, and afterwards, little Joe Armstrong, he was a lovely man. He just shuffled across the pitch to me, you know. He says, "Now, Bobby, if you want to play football for Manchester United when you leave school in the summer, we'd be very pleased to take you." And I said, yes, okay. If they were the first, that was going to be the decision I was going to make, and it was Manchester United.
Bob had made his mind up he was going to Manchester. they were the first ones to show any interest. And he wanted to go, and he went.
It was leaving Ashington for Manchester, one of the industrial powerhouses of the land, a footballing powerhouse. He was just 15 years old.
When I first got off the train at Manchester, Jimmy Murphy picked me up at the station to take me to my digs and sort of make you feel comfortable and welcome. And then I said, are we going to Old Trafford now? And he says, yeah, we're going to Old Trafford. I says, where is it? And I'm looking around at all the black buildings, and he says, Old Trafford is in Trafford Park. And I went, ooh, Trafford Park, very nice, lot of nice trees and open spaces. I think Trafford Park was the largest industrial estate in Europe at that time.
Jimmy Murphy was assistant manager and youth team coach at United, mentor and guide for a fledgling professional.
A lot of young players tend to think that they're going to do it all themselves, when football's a team game and you have to learn to play as a team. And Jimmy spent years and years, it seemed an eternity, teaching me all the things that you should know as a professional player. As I grew a little bit older, all the lessons that he was trying to teach me were all coming into my head.
He thought Bobby Charlton was one of the best players that the world has ever seen, never mind Manchester United. He regarded the players as his orchard, and his job was to produce the best apples possible. And occasionally, someone like Bobby, he'd refer to them as his golden apples. I've seen a golden apple, and he couldn't wait for them to mature and be picked.
Now football is a pleasant game, played in the sun, played in the rain, and the team that gets me excited, Manchester United, Manchester United, a bunch of bouncing Busby babes, they deserve to be knighted.
I knew about the Busby Babes. I mean, I'd read about it in the papers. At that particular time, it was unheard of, you know, that young players were replacing people in the middle 30s. But Matt Busby said, if you're good enough, you know, you'll be able to do it. I felt it was a bit of a challenge, that. I felt, you know, Manchester United now they've got the best reputation for breeding young players. I said, I'm in the right place.
Another golden apple among the Busby Babes was Duncan Edwards.
He became a best pal because we were both stationed doing a national service. So I spent a lot of time with him, and I mean, you could almost come off and leave him against 11 men. He would beat them on his own. I really did used to think that I was a good player, and I wasn't afraid of having a go at being the best if I could be, you know. But I never felt I could ever be the best when I played with him, because he was just fantastic. There were the other good players that were there, Billy Whelan from Dublin, Eddie Coleman, David Pegg, you know, they were all in the youth team, and they were all recognised first division players. It was just paradise.
I kept thinking, well, I'm scoring goals in the reserves. Why doesn't he pick me? Why doesn't he pick me for the first team? I played a match in the reserves at City, and the centre half and I hit the ball at the same time, and me right foot, it just. 2 weeks later, somebody said, Matt Busby wants you in his office on Friday. Right, so I went up, and he says, how's your ankle? I says, oh, my ankle's fine. My ankle's fine, you know. And he says, okay, well, congratulations, you're playing in the first team tomorrow. And he shook hands, like, very formal, you know. Yeah, first time. So I played, yeah, scored 2.
In Charlton's first season, United took the league title and so became the first English team to take part in the European Cup.
The Football League wanted us not to go into this tournament. You know, he said we've got enough fixtures, and Matt Busby had all worked it out. He says, no, this is the future. This is where we're going into Europe.
It was the excitement and the adventure of Europe suddenly was there. And I remember that
Matt Busby, Jimmy Murphy, they were all excited about this new competition, you know.
At their first attempt, they reached the semi-final, with Charlton scoring in defeat to Real Madrid. This only whetted the appetite of Busby and his babes for European competition. The following season, 1957-58, they were on course to reach the semi-finals again, with Charlton scoring twice in Belgrade.
We played against Red Star Belgrade, and we won. And everybody was really excited because we were getting near the semi-finals, and we'd had one go and we'd not done particularly well, but this time was really, we felt as though we could really go and win. Well, everybody knows if you're anything to do with Manchester United, what happened, and it was just a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
Well, it all happened this afternoon in the gathering dusk, and amid slow-fell flurries, when this BEA Elizabethan, which had been chartered by Manchester United to bring home from a match in Belgrade, the members...
We came down to refuel at Munich, and it was snowing and windy.
Across from me on a three-seater were two players, and it was Bobby Charlton and Dennis Violet, like two kids playing cuckoo over the top of the six-seater, going yeah and shouting down to the back of the plane, like a pair of kids. We set off down the runway. Not the slightest concern. And I'm looking out the window, and the wheels are directly outside my window. And I watched this bow wave of snow like you would in a speedboat. I didn't have the slightest fear or doubt at all. And all of a sudden I watched the wheels lock. Because I happened to be looking out the window just with interest. And they locked and unlocked, and the plane started to spin and skid around a bit. Locked and unlocked, and she eventually finished up slightly side on.
The plane stopped and we went in for a cup of coffee, and they said it would be all right now. So the second time, the same thing happened again. The third time, the boys was talking about if the plane was going to crash, because when we got back to the plane, some of the players swapped seats. They went at the back because they thought it was safer at the back of the plane.
When we got on board the aircraft the last time, I went to where I had sat. Bobby Charlton and Dennis Violet left the three-seater opposite me, and two or three more moved to the back of the aircraft. And we started to roll, and I was starting to get afraid. And I'm looking out the window now and watching again, because I'm more worried, for want of a better expression, but I never expected it to be what it was. And I watched the wheels, and I watched the bow wave of snow, which was much, much bigger then. And all of a sudden I watched the undercarriage go up. We're up. When you see the undercarriage go up, you're up. And next thing I know is daylight and darkness and banging and sparks and things hit you in the head.
I was at Leeds and I was training. I'd been in a shower and I was coming back and I was getting dressed. And Arthur Crowther, the secretary at the time, came to the door. And he just stood at the door and he looked round at the players. He said, Man United have had a crash in a plane, and we don't know what's happening to anybody, but we don't think there's any survivors. And then he went away. And all the lads looked at me, and I said, because they all knew that I was our Bob, was on the plane.
The Munich air crash. Of the crew of 6 and 38 passengers, 23 are known to have survived.
I thought I was dead because it was pitch black. I was afraid to touch my head. I thought the top of my head had been cut off. And I looked up to my right when things had sort of settled. I saw a tiny little patch of light, and I started to crawl, and I'm crawling up. And I turned on my backside and kicked the hole bigger and dropped down on the ground beside him, and I thought, Christ, I'm the only one alive here.
I went back to Arthur's office and I knocked on his door and I went in and I said, our Bob's on that plane, my brother. Have you heard? And he said, well, no, he said, there are some survivors, but we haven't got notice of them.
I started to come around what was left of the stump of a wing, and I found Bobby Charlton and Dennis Violet lying half in, half out of what was the aircraft. I thought they were dead. It was burned. I pulled them about 15, 20 yards away. Just grabbed them by the trousers and pulled them through the snow and laid them over a pile of rubbish, left them there dead. The biggest shock I had was when I turned and there's Bobby Charlton and Dennis Violet staring at the rest of the plane exploding in the petrol dump. Just staring.
We went and got a train and we went to Newcastle, and I walked through Newcastle to the Haymarket to get the bus to Ashington. And as I was walking past, I looked at the lad had the newspapers and he had them over his arm, and I must have been 2 or 3 yards away from him when I read, and it said Bobby Charlton is among the survivors.
Here is the news. So far, we know there are 23 survivors after Manchester United's air crash at Munich this afternoon. Of the Manchester United party, Matt Busby, manager, and the following players: Gregg, Wood, Folkes, J. Blanchflower, Morgans, Berry, Charlton, Violet, and Scant.
I got home and I knew there was something wrong on the way up because there were lots of people outside the door. And I got in and my mother was in an awful state. She was, somebody gave her, I think it was brandy. Well, my mother never drank, ever.
My mother, she said a woman had come from one of the neighbours who had been listening to the news and said there was no survivors and that sort of thing. But behind her came a policeman and he said, oh, wait a minute, yes there is. He said, there's quite a few survivors. He says, and Bobby's one of them. My mother just looked at me and she said, if that woman had come 5 minutes earlier, I would have collapsed. She said, but now we know Bob's okay.
When we got to the hospital, I started ranting and raving. I'm 16, 17-year-old, you know. I just didn't understand, you know. You know, you get on an airplane, you expect the airplane to take off and touch down. The medical people came round and they gave me an injection in the back of my neck, and I just collapsed. And I didn't wake up till the following morning. And I was in a room, and this German lad was there, and he had a paper. And he was saying, like, and I said, yes, what's happening? You know, what's happened? And then he told me. And then he said, he had a list of all the players, and he read them out, and if they were alive, he would say yes, and if they were dead, he said no.
A short time ago, British European Airways issued a list of identified dead. It includes the following names previously reported as unaccounted for: Curry, the Manchester United trainer, and Wally, their coach, and the following players: Byrne, Coleman, Jones, and Whelan.
I'd like to say a few words to my mother. I hope she's okay.
Yes.
And taking it well.
Look at her while you're doing it.
She hasn't been down to see me, you know, but it's a bit long way and I'm all right.
I know.
If I'd have been a bit worse off, like some of the others.
For my mother to actually get to Germany to see Bob was virtually impossible. She didn't have a passport. Nobody had a passport in those days. Didn't have any money, and nobody that we could actually borrow that sort of money from. She really regretted. She told me many, many times that she regretted not being able to get there.
I had to wait for a couple of days before I could get on the train to go home. And when I was on my own, I thought about it. I thought about it a lot. And my own personal friends were dead.
It changed your life.
Mm. Yeah. Well, it did. I mean, I did. I don't know. I don't know why. I think you think to yourself, well, why should it be me? But there again, I was lucky. I was just lucky. I happened to sit in the right place.
The vision that I've got is my brother, my beloved brother, going through pain, and I couldn't do anything to help him, and that was awful.
Today, how you would deal with it, and you have much more help to deal with these types of traumas that people can endure in terms of maybe accident or death or whatever. But in these days, it was a sort of it was an after-war thing that you just gone with life, you know. We dealt with the war, we dealt with tragedy in a different way as we do now.
I never really felt as though I needed any instruction in any form, because I never had any injuries really.
I went out to London and picked him up in a car and drove him home. And I said to him, you know, tell me about what happened. And he said, I don't want to talk about it. And I said, well, you know, I don't know anything about what happened, you know. And he said, I'll tell you now, he said, but never ask me again, because I'll never tell you.
Bobby stayed in Ashington, recovering, regaining his strength. 2 weeks after the crash, his mother told him that Duncan Edwards had died of his injuries.
My father spoke about Duncan, but not for very long, because he'd burst into tears. A tremendous loss, yeah. And the thing about Duncan that's so sad is he died a couple of weeks after the other players, this big strong boy. Everyone's hope was pinning on him making a recovery, not necessarily to play football, but just to be alive again. And when he died a couple of weeks after the others, it was stunning.
When people come up and ask me now, like, what was Duncan Edwards really like, it's hard to explain. There's no television pictures of him really, you know, to show what he was like. But he was colossal, really. Overpowering, big, confident. Give the ball to him, that's what they used to say. Give the ball to him, he'll take over. Great. Oh, you're not coming? Okay.
There was a question that now had to be answered. What to do next? Was it possible to think of ever playing football again?
I fell in love with Manchester United the short time I was there. I mean, it was the only thing in the world, Man United. And I had I wondered what would happen. I wondered how they would be able to recover. But recover we had to do. You know, we had to make the effort.
The Munich disaster cast the nation into mourning. Matt Busby was still in hospital in Munich, fighting for his life. Jimmy Murphy had missed the trip to Belgrade, having been on coaching duty with Wales. Now the assistant manager had to steer United through what remained of the season.
Jimmy was fantastic. I mean, when he came in, when he came back, I mean, the club was absolutely gutted. I honestly believe without Jimmy, the club would have closed.
Jimmy Murphy was responsible for the team that played Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup. And I went down with my Uncle Tommy to watch the match, and I was sitting with Jimmy Murphy, and I thought, what am I doing sitting here? You know, there's nothing wrong with me. And the players were on the field trying like hell, you know, to keep Manchester United afloat.
2 weeks after the crash, and with a team cobbled together by Murphy from reserves and loan players, United faced Sheffield Wednesday.
We won, and I felt really sorry for Sheffield Wednesday, the players. They didn't have a chance. There was so much emotion and so much passion, and for the city of Manchester, and anybody that ever supported Man United will never forget that. I thought, you know, well, there's going to be a big effort here. There's got to be a big effort. So I said to Jimmy, I said, I'll come back on before the weekend, because I was all right. I hadn't trained for a few weeks, but it didn't really matter.
Bobby Charlton was very young, still a teenager, and yet he was being asked to play football again. And I think in many ways that was the saving grace for him, because it was something to occupy his mind. I always felt that Bobby went into Munich as a boy, but came out as a man, because he shouldered a lot of responsibility when he got back into the team.
9 weeks after the crash, Matt Busby was released from hospital. Now all of 20, Charlton was the centrepiece in the side Busby returned to manage. Swept along on a tide of emotion, United reached the 1958 FA Cup final. But there would be no fairy tale ending.
Bolton Wanderers beat us 2-0. And the bubble hadn't burst because the momentum of Manchester United had continued, even though this terrible tragedy had happened.
Fully recovered, Busby began the job of building a new Manchester United team. He said it would take him 5 years. The prediction came true. 5 years after the Munich crash, Busby's new team won the FA Cup. It was a new age built on timeless principles.
Matt Busby said to me once, you know, and I think he was given a team talk, and he said, you know, all these people, he says, they're going past the ground and they're going to work in Trafford Park. He says, and they're going to work really hard on shop floors and different places. He said, but when they're finished on the Saturday, they expect to be entertained. They expect to have something decent, you know, and it's something that we must have thought about, because that's part of what Manchester United is. You're not allowed to play boring football. You've got to entertain.
Busby's new United was built around Munich survivors Harry Gregg, Bill Fuchs and Bobby Charlton. But it was the addition of Dennis Law and George Best that made the reconstruction special. Manchester United began to play football that no one would ever forget.
Well, it was a period when, if I was a Man United fan, I must have been proud to burst, you know. I mean, it was just fantastic, and you daren't not go. You daren't not go in case Dennis Law scored a hat-trick of headers or volleys or whatever, whether George turned the fullbacks and the midfield players inside out. If you didn't go and you missed it, that was your fault. And I could hit the odd ball from a distance.
Law, Best, Charlton. That's a goal worth remembering, isn't it?
We had 3 players in that side who were so different, and they were just going to win a game on their own. All of a sudden something would happen, bang. The thing about football is the better players you play with, the easier it is. And if I was not playing well, which was quite often, George would pick up, he would be scoring. If George wasn't playing well, which was seldom, Bobby would pick up. It was one of those. There was always one of us on getting a goal from somewhere along the line.
It just slips off the tongue, you know, Best Lord Charlton era, you know. And you think, wow, that's wicked. It's great stuff.
Dennis, I mean, he had this presence about him, but when he got into the box, and he played on the last man all the time, the defender, either a ball through or whatever, but heading wise and everything, he was unbelievable.
Has to watch for Law. It's a goal by Law.
When Bobby got the ball on either wing, I knew that he was looking at the near post. I never waited at the far post for Bobby, because the opposition, you have a wee bit of a start on them if they don't know where you're going. So if he saw me in the box, he knew that I would be going for the near post, and that was invariably where it went.
And you'll think, well, that's easy, that. But it's not easy. It's not easy. And George Best had the most unbelievable talent. You could throw a ball at him in any direction, at any pace, and he'd control it instantly. He didn't have to look at the ball. He knew where the ball was, and he used to find his way through defenders. And if he got within range, he would have a crack at goal.
And it's a magnificent goal. What a magnificent goal!
Absolute pleasure. It wasn't a pleasure when George wouldn't pass to you. Sometimes he wouldn't pass to you. If he got near the goals, there was no chance he was passing to anybody.
If you're a football fan and you know what's in the mind of football fans, you know, and they come down and they see this, they must be really pleased, mustn't they? And I sometimes can't believe that that's me up there. But it's great. It's great. Yeah, very lucky. We're lucky. It all came together at the right time.
United would go on to win league titles in 1965 and 1967, and Charlton was maturing into one of the most influential midfielders in England. Now came his chance to spread his influence over the world. He was now an established England international. He was more than that. As with United, he was the centrepiece of the national side.
He was a modest, self-effacing individual. He was part of the team, and I think one of his secrets was in run receipt, he didn't recognise how great he was. I think that's really a fantastic attribute to have. You are good at what you do, but you don't have to tell anybody about it. You don't have to behave differently. You don't have to show everybody. He just showed it on the field.
Once rivals in the alleyways of Ashington, the Charltons were now together in the England team. Bobby and older brother Jack.
When I played for England with Alf, and Alf used to say, "Give the ball to Bobby. If you get the opportunity, give the ball to Bobby, and let Bobby then develop it." And he was very good at it.
In 1966, England hosted the World Cup. Home advantage and having Bobby Charlton fueled a growing self-belief.
Certainly, I think with all sincerity that we shall win the World Cup in 1966.
People don't remember this. Almost 3 years prior to 1966, England were unbeaten. We'd never been beaten by anybody. We went to South America, we went to Europe, we went all over the place, and we would beat them on their own patch. And we were favourites to win the World Cup by the time it came round, and rightly so.
It now gives me great pleasure to declare open the 8th World Football Championships.
Immediately we started, we fell on our faces, really.
Right to the end, both goals survived. Not once was the ball in either net. The best team that manager Alf Ramsey could muster was not good enough to win.
You know, played against Uruguay and we 0-0 draw. Oh God! And everybody in the whole of Britain was, certainly in England, was thinking, well, I thought this was going to be the great day, you know.
Next, Mexico. Now a must-win game. It was an invitation to a special player to deliver.
Jimmy Murphy used to take me out, and he used to tell me about scoring. He says, if there's space in front of you, Bobby, take it. Run with the ball, don't be afraid. You got pace, run with the ball. I went to my left, I went to my right, and players kept retreating backwards, and eventually I was getting near the 18-yard box, and I thought, if he lets me go another stride here without coming to challenge me, I'm going to have a dig, I hit it and it was sweet as a nut. And I thought, well, people will remember that, because I'll remember it a long time. That was great. That was.
Shot from Charlton. It's worth trying.
Suddenly, England maybe were back on the rails again, you know, and you could sort of feel it in the country, you know.
The 1966 World Cup says it all. He had that ability to lift a team by his example, by his goals. And of course, he'll always be remembered, I suppose, more than anything else, for his phenomenal shooting power.
Spurred on by Charlton, England gathered momentum and reached the World Cup semi-final, where they would meet the much-fancied Portuguese.
Ray Wilson knocked the ball up, and Jeff Hurst was on it, and he was making towards the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper really was a bit scared, and he put his knees up, and the ball hit his knees, and it came straight back to me, and because I'd been going up to help support, and it just came out to me. I thought, well, Wembley, I'd remembered when I was a schoolboy playing at Wembley, how smooth it was, and I trusted the pitch, and I passed the ball into the goals.
Charlton has scored!
The second one, Jeff Hurst, the ball was knocked into him. He was keeping the defender away, but at the same time he was looking, and he saw me about 20 or 30 yards away, you know, and I'd seen him, and I thought, right.
I teed it up, and of course he wasn't going to miss from about 15 yards with the shot, the power he had in his shot.
And he just knocked the ball right in front of me, and I didn't even have to break stride, and I hit it, and I knew I'd scored as soon as I hit it.
And it's Hurst. 5 minute running by Hurst, back to Charlton. This could be it, it is! And that could be the goal that puts England in the final.
And the ball flew into the other corner, and we'd done it. We were in the final.
And for the great Bobby Charlton, his goals had taken England into the final.
My feelings at the time, of course, I was incredibly proud. I had a ticket. Bob and Jack made sure that I got a ticket. I didn't have any money to get there, and I really didn't want to give them any more pressure than they already had. My old foreman at the pit, he asked me would I sell him my ticket, and he was a great character, old Norman. He went to London, to Wembley on his bike.
Really?
From Ashington, yeah. He rode all the way.
England would meet West Germany in the final. Bobby Charlton was the player they feared the most.
The Germans consider you their main threat tomorrow.
Well, I hope to prove them right.
He was the most influential player in the England team. The ultimate challenge was to be the driving force one more time on football's grandest stage of them all.
We were totally focused. We knew exactly what we had to do. The only thing that was really worrying was the young Beckenbauer. The first couple of games we had to watch on television in the World Cup, and we watched the Germans, and they were awesome. He was awesome. Said we'll have to talk about him if we have to play them. You know, we have to make sure that he doesn't get it. We don't allow him to get in your box.
It was funny because I was asked, or I was ordered by our team manager Helmut Schön to follow Bobby Charlton, because Bobby Charlton, he was the engine of the England game.
Alf and in his team talk, you know, he got me at the side and he asked me to stick with Beckenbauer through the whole game and stop him from getting it. He says, because we'll win if we stop him. And I thought, well, that's a good deal.
I talked to him years later. I say, Bobby, you know, I had an order, and yes, he had the same order. I didn't know.
I remember feeling a little bit frustrated because I'd always wanted to play in a World Cup final, you know. And here I've got a man-to-man marking job. It's not what I envisaged. But if we win, everything's justified.
No, it was really, I still remember, you know, he was so fit, he was running like a horse. And it was very, very difficult to stop him. It was almost impossible. But I think also, in my age, unexperienced, I think I did also a good job to stop him. I was very, very happy because he didn't score.
There's Beckenbauer shadowing him everywhere.
Bobby never complained about that, and the fact he's never, not once did he shirk the duty. That just again shows his character and his personality. The fact he was given the task to do, or virtually to mark somebody, one of our great players, mark somebody for 90 minutes in a final, not for 1 second did he think, well, I'm not sure I want to do this.
In this game I realized how difficult it is to follow him, to mark him, because in my opinion, 1966 in the World Cup, he was the best player in the world.
What a chance! A goal! Peters!
And England 2-1 in the lead now, deservedly so because they've been piling on the pressure.
Emmerich coming in. And he's... Oh, yes, it must do! They have done! Weber has scored in the last seconds.
When they scored the equalising goal, I was certain there was quarter of an hour to go. And he blew for full time. And I thought, wow, you know, as close as that. Bloody.
Here's Ball running himself daft. And now Hurst, can he do it? He has done, yes! Yes! No! No, the linesman says no.
The linesman put his flag up and I was fuming. I thought, what's he got his flag up for? You know, it's a goal.
It was very, very difficult. I was close to the situation because I was in the penalty area, but it was too fast.
When the referee went across, he said it was a goal.
And here comes Hurst. He's got some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over. It is now. It's four. And Bobby Charlton weeping with emotion.
And then I bumped into our Robert, and I just give him a hug.
You can't not be proud, can you really? Hey? Especially that one. It's great.
Remember that moment?
Yeah, yeah. I said to him, I said, what about that kid? You know? And I said, our lives will never be the same again. And it's a fact. It's just such a big thing that we've done.
In general, third goal was a goal, one not. I don't know. It's, but I think England was the better team, and they deserve the win.
He never stops moaning about the third goal. That's the only problem. Yeah, the third goal, and there it is.
And then you see exactly the ball bounced down, hit the line, and up. So it was no goal, of course.
Oh, he's always saying that. He's always saying that.
Yes, I make a joke every time, you know, when I took the microphone and say, Bobby, sorry, but, you know, I was very close. Of course, I saw it exactly. The ball never was behind, but just to tease him.
I said, but you're not going to tell me that you thought you were the better team. And he said, oh, no, I didn't say that. I said, no.
Yes, I like these pictures. You see, both are very tired. Must be the end of the game.
Franz Beckenbauer signed it. Hey, yeah. His never changes his autograph.
He says that you're the best player he's ever played against.
Oh well, he's a politician, you know, as well. But I have a lot of time for him. We see a lot of each other, fortunately, which is good.
The whole of England was proud of Bobby. In that same year, he was crowned European Footballer of the Year, but there was still one prize that eluded him. 10 years after Munich, Charlton and Busby were still consumed by their obsession, the European Cup.
Eventually, you know, the idea was 1 year we're going to have to win it. You know, we're going to have to win it.
We played a few times, had a go at winning the European Cup, but never could do it. And then we played in Madrid in the semi-final against Madrid, we beat them.
Real Madrid had won the European Cup 6 times. They led at home 2-0, and then United rallied.
That was a real turning point in the history of our game, I thought, because we beat Real Madrid, who were the best, supposedly the best in the world.
I just cracked up. I cry when we win. Don't cry when we lose, I cry when we win. It's just, I couldn't help it. It'd have been so hard, that. Yeah, magic. That's it. That's happiness personified, that is. Wow, I remember that day. Yeah, brilliant.
After all they had been through, it seemed that United simply had to win the title, to balance the scales that had been tipped against them. Only one obstacle stood in their way: Benfica.
The most important thing leading right up to it was that we were going to win the match, and there was no alternative. We had to win that match. Graka equalised a goal that I'd scored in the first half, and then Alex Sepney made an unbelievable save. Otherwise, we might have to wait years again. And then we went into extra time, and we scored 3 goals in extra time.
Charlton, another! He's got another!
I remember everybody was jumping up and cheering, but we'd done it. When the final whistle went, everybody dashed to Samat, you know. There were his players that got lost in Munich. They were his lads. His team, and everybody, I think, in the whole crowd, maybe even in the whole country, thought a little bit about Matt Busby's feelings that night. And the old man could feel as though, you know, what he started out was eventually, you know, was back on the rails. Then we could look at each other, Nobby and Bill Foulkes, and all the people, Tony Dunn, people that had been to Munich, and then you had the feeling of we'd done it, we'd done our bit anyway, we'd done our bit. No, I didn't have any emotion. I made my mind up I wasn't going to have any. I thought, no, you got to keep a clear head, you know.
A lot of things was wrapped up in that particular match with the accident that had happened, and it didn't seem right that Man United should never have won the European Cup. Anyway, that became the standard then. Now Alex wants to win it all the time. He doesn't think he's won it enough.
The first gentleman of football makes his last appearance in the Football League. Bobby Charlton coming out to mark this momentous occasion.
Bobby Charlton finished playing in 1973. He still holds the goal-scoring record for Manchester United and for England. His boots hung up, he tried his hand at management, but his time in charge of Preston did not enter the record books. He was above all a football player and a family man, devoted to his wife Norma and his daughters, Suzanne and Andrew, and devoted to Manchester United. In 1984, he accepted the club's invitation to join their board as a director.
Manchester United asked me if I would come on the board, and I said, well, that's absolutely fantastic, yeah, thanks very much.
Best part of being a director at Man United, all the matches you get to see for nothing.
He was the person that actually told Manchester United about me, and I think that's what started my Manchester United career off.
To have him around the place after all these years, after he'd finished, is great for young players coming through, because you can just see, just in one man, the history of Manchester United, really.
There you go. How's that?
Yeah, you know, it's Vegas or not here?
No, they're playing, aren't they? Playing a big match tomorrow.
Yeah.
And on Friday, has his press conference at 11 o'clock. That's where he is at Carrington. So you've just missed him. Hard luck. Hey? Sometimes you find you're in the car and you're at Old Trafford. What did you come for? You know, just wanted to come. Yeah. It's magic, yeah.
Bobby came and spoke to the players, and you know, you could hear a pin drop. You know, they probably heard of the Munich air disaster, but after Bobby told it, you could see the impact it had on him.
Balance. And balance means that you can move very quickly.
He's well known, and everybody likes him, everybody loves him in the whole world.
His name, at our time, if you travel all over the world, in any part of the world who couldn't speak English, there's only one piece of English they could say, and that was Bobby Charlton.
One of the greatest footballers ever to have graced the game, World Cup winner and Academy member, Sir Bobby Charlton.
This year's Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Sir Bobby Charlton.
He's never, ever shown any other side to me other than he's just a nice guy. I'm proud of that.
Favourite memory is when he nutmegged me and he was laughing when he ran away from me, and I was chasing him, and I was, like my mother used to say, leave our kid alone. I probably would have kicked him, but I couldn't catch him.
I would love to have played today. We don't go on about the game being better or worse.
The first time you've been on the tour? First time?
Just that it's still good. It's still good. Well, that was me. I've been lucky all my life, it seems. Since I was little, I never had an injury. I never had an injury. I'm 73, I've got all my cartilages.
I never in my wildest dreams thought about having to stand here and look at that. Because the great thing is here forever. Yeah.
I'm really, really proud. I'm really proud of what I've done, and if I've passed on a few things, you know, that people will remember, I'd like to think that too.
I shouldn't talk about myself scoring goals, but there was a great goal that I really got a lot of pleasure from. Dennis Law picked the ball up here, and we were playing Tottenham in the Charity Shield. A little shoulder dummy to somebody and went up.
Law. Oh, beautiful body slam to Kidd.
Brian Kidd got as near to the 18-yard box as he could, and he laid one. He saw me, and he laid one just as I got to the 18-yard box. Brian Kidd just laid it right in front of me, and I was full stride. And I didn't even have to break my stride, and I whacked it straight in the top corner.
And here comes Charlton. Oh, a great goal!
That's magic, yeah. Oh, it is. I don't know, I'm lucky lad. Lucky lad.